Hello everybody. My name is Bright Rose and welcome back to this little explainer, this little walkthrough on how I like to do the texturing or the aging of various building components and things like that here in the blocky world of Minecraft. And first of all, we're going to have a look at this simple wall setup and this simple flooring technique that I like to use. And we're just going to look at the various different stages and ways that you can add a little bit of age, a little bit of wear and tear to these sorts of simple buildings, just to give it a little bit more detail, a little bit more feature, and make it look like the world is lived in and not just straight out of the box. So starting off really simple, just by adding in a few blocks on the same kind of palette, we have the cracked stone bricks, we have the standard stone brick, and we have andesite as well. And with these blocks, what you can do is just add a little bit more detail in to these areas like this, just to show a little bit of wear and tear. And I like to add them around the corners like this, or around the edges of the area, and that in itself just begins to show that little bit of aging, a little bit of wear and tear going on. And that shows that these damaged bricks exist within the walls. Using the stone, you can get rid of some of the stone bricks just to add some kind of like worn areas where maybe it's been a little bit scrubbed, a little bit battered, things like that. And you can expand these areas and just add a little bit of andesite in to show that it's even more worn away, and it begins to create almost a little bit of depth into the build as well, where you can imagine this is where the detail is on the surface and this has been worn away to the lighter blocks like that. One thing that I love doing in builds like this is adding little bits of darkness, little bits of shade into these barely seen blocks, like behind this chest here. You can just change one of these stone bricks blocks for a little bit of tuff, and it just creates this area of shading back there. You can also add it into the corners like this, and it just again creates a little bit of depth there that you can imagine some darkness, some shade, things like that added in to those little areas. Resetting the build back to the start, we're going to start bringing in the mossy blocks, which are honestly some of my favourite to use in the game. Mossy stone bricks being my favourite block in the game. And we're going to start, like I say, in these corner areas, just swapping out some of these blocks, including these hidden ones like that, just to show areas where maybe the moss has started to creep up, where the dampness and things like that have grown up against this wall, and that just adds that little bit of natural aging into it. What you can do as well is you can break out some of the blocks like this and just have them where it looks like water has perhaps been dripping down and just flowing over the surface, leading to the buildup of moss. What you can also do, if you want to add even more aging to the area, is just to swap out for a few moss blocks like that, which perhaps shows the entire area has just been completely covered in moss. And when you're doing that, you can extend it a little further just to show that kind of look. If you want to go even further, you could potentially add some vines dotted around and things like that, that really begins to show it aging with a sort of natural growth across the blocks. Taking the moss a step further, we can go in and we can add some of the cracked stone bricks as well, to begin to really show that the wall is breaking down, that it's quite aged, and there's a lot of damage beginning to creep in to the stonework here. And you just want to keep a little bit of a transition area between the areas that have been affected and the standard stone bricks in this case, just to show that whilst the wall is beginning to get damaged, is beginning to get overrun, it's not quite there yet, and you can see this flow between the different stages. Going a step further, we can perhaps remove a few of these blocks and just add in some walls like this to show a little bit of depth, where maybe the wall has begun to fall away and you've still got the pattern and things like that, but it's beginning to crumble and you've got an increased amount of damage building up. And one thing you can do as well when you've got things like this, just take some simple blocks like your stone button or maybe even the pressure plates and just add in a little bit of rubble around the base of the wall to show that some damage has begun to build up and fall away. And you can also add slabs and things like that as well at the base here, just to show that damage. We're going to have a look at the wood areas now. And a really quick and simple way to add aging to the wood is just to strip away a few of the logs like this to give the impression that it's just worn away with age. However, this does create a much brighter contrast with the area and can in some ways take away the attention from the center of the build to this border area. So whilst that is a good way of doing it and does work, especially with the lighter blocks, like if you're using a sandstone palette, what I like to do is use dark oak, because dark oak is a really good contrast color in this sense to add in with the spruce. It just looks, in my opinion, like a bit more of a washed out oak color, and this allows it to just look like there's areas of the spruce that have perhaps become a bit worn, a bit tarnished with age, and you can just dot that in, especially around areas like this where you've got the moss building up. Lastly, we're going to look at the flooring here, and I've just laid out a simple basalt pattern here, because basalt and its variation blocks is what I like to use the most when I'm doing things like road surfaces and flooring like this. You've seen me use this many times in different builds, including a lot in the Hive City that I'm currently building on Relaxcraft. And what we're going to do is just add a little bit of aging to this pattern, and we're going to start off by adding this polished basalt in. And I just like adding it in little textures like this to show worn areas of the floor, and I've got a proper tutorial for how I like to do this with basalt on my channel already, so I'll drop a link to that down below. Please do check it out if you're interested in what I've been doing here. And then up against the wall, we're going to add in a little bit of dirt, a little bit of mud to show the kind of aged areas, and I'm going to start over here around these chests. So we'll just dot a little bit of mud in like that, and that begins to add in a lot darker areas. Then I'm going to go for the coarse dirt just around these edges here, and finally I'm going to add in a little bit of dirt. So we're going from the darkest, grimiest areas into these light areas like this, and we can do the same again over here. First of all, removing the block underneath these partially covered areas and just adding in these little contrasts like this. And you can add as much or as little as you'd like to these sorts of things, just depending on exactly how you want it to look. And in that case there, I've broken my usual rule of having the blocks touching each other in this way. Normally I like to do the full transition between the dark through the various stages and not have things like this dirt touching the darkest block like that. But, you know, rules are there to be broken, so it looks good, you can't tell. And I think that looks pretty damn good in terms of aging it up from what was originally there to what we've got now. And with a few little last touches, some moss carpet, some buttons of various different colours, and a few spruce signs across the recessed darker areas, it adds in a little bit more layer, a little bit more contrast with the shadow and variation of colour, just to finally complete this build and have this section nice and aged and weathered. And this is something you can completely expand out across an entire build of either a single building or perhaps a city, a village, whatever it is you're building. And this just works for what is basically my favourite sort of texture palette and blocks that I like using. This spruce, this stone brick, they're my absolute favourites, so that's what I like working with. But it is easy to apply this to various other texture palettes and things like this and go with this kind of natural aging. It works in a sort of fantasy, kind of Renaissance look as well. It is just how I like building these things. So I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please do drop a like and a comment below. I would be so very grateful for you. Otherwise, thank you very much. My name is Bright Rose, and I will see you again. Bye bye.